Don't do Mean Girls at all. I can't stand, especially in the industry when it's so small, everybody talks.
Oh my god, I had such a funny story about Mean Girls, literally from the hackathon I told you about. So when I first was, we get there, right, and you present your ideas, and so one of the first girls I talked to, like, she's like in the like the VC space, etc. I tell her about like the idea. I'm not gonna talk about it just yet because I have to make a LinkedIn post about it, etc.
It's really cool though.
It is really cool. It's like, think like skincare, but like you guys will know. Anyways, so I told her about it, and she's like, oh, like I'm hesitant about it. I've seen this fail so many times. Like this is not gonna work out. And like her, like as I was speaking to her, Aimon, like literally like her like eyebrows are like furrowing. Like this girl like does not like me. Like I can tell that she's like, ew. Like I had like red lipstick on that day, so you know what I mean.
Girl,
like
you look cute. She was jealous.
No, yeah, I don't know, but like basically, I guess like. And sometimes in like a tech space, like when you are someone that has like red lipstick on and a cute fit, it's like
they don't take you seriously.
Yeah, that can happen. Doesn't normally happen to me, thankfully, because I'm like, screw that. But like this person did, and like then of course after we presented and like after 3 days, it's like her team didn't really get anywhere. And that's not to say that like. It just made me realize like Mean Girls, like being a mean girl doesn't work. I don't know.
Yeah, I absolutely agree.
Hello cuties, welcome to another episode of Brown Girl Unscripted. It's your girl Rucha, and I hope you're having a sexy day. On this episode of Brown Girl Unscripted, we have an amazing guest, Aimon Ali. She's an influencer and the founder of Fashion Talks Foundation. Welcome to Brown Girl Unscripted, Queen.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah. How has your day been? How's New York City been so far for you?
Cold.
Yeah.
But, I'm coming from colder, so that's fine. But it's been good. I love being in the city, especially for Fashion Week. So, doing all the things.
Yeah, that's so exciting. Guys, we literally ran into each other in the elevator or like the lobby of the studio, and we were talking about how freezing it is and how like they were holding the drinks and everything. And guys, like New York City is so brick right now. It is wild. But anyways, getting back to Fashion Week, tell us a little bit more about, again, the foundation and also what brings you to Fashion Week. Why are you coming to Fashion Week? Spill the tea.
Yeah, so I'm an influencer and content creator. I do a lot around like travel, fashion, and like kind of my life as a female of color that has a business, and I like moved from Canada to America. So I've been coming to Fashion Week for like the last few years. But with my business and my nonprofit now, so we are doing a lot more like programming and impact, and I have interns, and I love to bring them to Fashion Week to give them this like experience, because everybody always wants to come, but it's not that easy to get invited and be able to network, and so kind of bring them along and let them experience it too.
Yeah, no, that honestly, that's such a giving back type moment. I feel like passing the baton. I feel like I sound like a boomer, but in the sense of just like you're like, hey, like you should come. I feel like that must be so empowering to be able to do that. And then like you mentioned, you've been coming to Fashion Week for specifically the foundation and now the nonprofit for the past couple years. What has that been like? And I know you mentioned you're switching to more impact and programmatic, right?
Just programming, because like not like I have a business too as a serial entrepreneur, but being in a business and being in a nonprofit is like a totally different world. Like I feel like in business you can just do things and have your events or do your services, but like when it comes to a nonprofit, like you really have to think about like who you're impacting and what you're doing to give back and like how all of that looks. So I've been networking more. I always kind of am networking wherever I am, and I've always been in here and there in New York, but now that we want to like expand to New York from the Midwest, definitely been like just working harder on figuring that out. Like we've already done our own events during Fashion Week, but I do want to do something like larger. So
yeah, talk to me a bit more about what that impact looks like and what your overall vision is. I'm sure our audience will be so excited to hear that.
Okay, so Fashion Talks is a creative agency. We do experimental events, and then also like I do consulting and other things like that. But the nonprofit arm is called Fashion Talks Foundation, and one of our missions is basically to help diverse creatives in the industry just elevate their branding, their business, because I feel like a lot of people just don't have the resources to get started, or they just are not in the right rooms. Especially as women of color, sometimes we don't even know the rooms exist.
That's too real.
I know, until someone tells us or someone takes us into the room, and then you're like, I had no idea this was an option. So I think like bridging that gap, because I am in those rooms now. I can kind of help a lot of people, connect them to the right person, help with PR, things like that. So we're trying to help make more impact with whether you're a creative, a podcast host, or a designer, or a student. Like, we have quite a wide audience, but you know, helping with different aspects of business is kind of the impact we make.
That's amazing. And I totally resonate with what you said about, you know, you don't even know that the rooms exist, and then when you go in it, you're like, oh my god, like, you, it's like
the light bulb.
Like the light bulb. Yeah, like there's a veil in front of you, you didn't even see it. So I think it's amazing. It's amazing that, you know, you're opening that to so many people. Talk to me more about, like, of course, like when you were first introduced to these rooms, or you got into these rooms by networking, whatever you did. Like, talk to me about that process, what that was like for you, and this, even like growing up, you know, because like what you said about as a woman of color, or just not even about the woman of color part, but like in general, I feel like people aren't exposed to like entrepreneurship spaces, and they might feel like, oh well, like the only viable paths in life are doing X, Y, and Z, and it's just not possible, it's just not realistic, until you meet people and you're surrounded by so many people that have made it so big in their lives by doing just what they want and not looking back. So talk to me about that process, and like what your, I guess, awakening, for lack of a better term, was, you know, because you said you're a serial entrepreneur, so I'm really curious.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely went through that, because I don't know if we've ever talked about this. I was a psychology major. I was a behavioral therapist before.
Yeah, you did briefly mention that.
Yeah, so I worked like a 9 to 5, right? Like, I was a behavioral therapist at a hospital with children, and then I was kind of doing fashion on the side. And you know, a lot of people, I feel like when they want to change, they're just like, oh, but like, I don't want to give up on like what I studied for so long, or like I can't do it, or it's not for me. And I felt like I kind of always was like with the mindset of like, I'm just going to do both. Because when I was living in Canada, I was busy, but like I was able to manage like being in the industry, but then also working. And then it wasn't until I moved to America that I was like, oh, I'm going to pick one. Yeah. Because I wasn't really feeling the whole working as a behavioral therapist and not having a life.
I get it.
There's, you know, like there's
your weekends and after work
like when I feel like in Canada I definitely had more of a balance, whereas when I moved here I was like, oh, this is really different. Like, this is not what I want with my life. I don't see myself working like this every single day for the rest of my life. And so that's when I started thinking about like, okay, entrepreneurship, I've kind of already dabbled in it, should I take the leap? And then I started networking with people around me, just started speaking about it, started doing the things on the side, and then eventually I was like, you know what, I'm gonna do it. And then I transitioned, and I kid you not, we went into lockdown a month after I started my first business. But I pivoted, and I think that's really important. And that was a whole journey. But I feel like if you have that idea, if you're thinking of doing it, you really have to believe in yourself, and then you just kind of have to start doing it.
Yeah, no, that's so real. Like what you said about, you know, just doing it and not really thinking too much about it. And then going back to what you said about when in Canada you felt more comfortable balancing the two, but when you came here that changed. Why was it different for you here versus Canada?
I think it was different because I'm from Toronto, and our industry there for fashion is much larger, and I was already in the industry. I was working, so I used to do production. So I did large scale production for fashion shows, conferences, anything business, tech, and fashion related. I did like production for. And I was kind of behind the scenes, but then I also became like a content creator and influencer along the way, and I was able to manage it. But like when I moved to America, and because I moved to the Midwest, Ohio, fashion wasn't really the same. So it was I was no longer being invited to brand events every other week. Do you know what I mean? And I was like, oh, I have to
hustle,
shift, and actually think about the content I'm creating, because it's not just naturally being created now. So I think that was hard. And also, like, Americans and Canadians are different, and I feel like there's definitely a lifestyle difference. I do think in Canada there's a little bit more time for leisure, whereas in America it's very hustle, which either way, as an entrepreneur, you're hustling. But there was like this change, like my life changed. Like, you know, like I got married, which is why I moved to America, and that was a change. I was super social. I had no friends when I moved here. I didn't know anybody when I moved here. I couldn't work when I moved here. Like, I just picked up my whole life and moved to a whole other country and was like, oh my God, how do I restart everything?
Oh my God.
Also, as a content creator, my entire audience was Canadian.
Wow.
Now I'm like, I want to work with American brands. I have to now rebuild my entire audience so I have Americans too.
What was that like rebuilding it? Like, how did you even start building that strategy?
Honestly, I just started networking.
Yeah.
Because I knew I'm social.
I get it. Me too.
Yeah, and I'm like, I have to get out there. People have to hear my story. Like, I already had my idea for my first business. So I was like, I just need to start seeing who's in the city where I am that like I could connect with. And to be honest, I like found some really amazing creatives in the Cleveland area, and I would actually take them back to Canada to work with me because I was still working on shows in Canada pre-pandemic. So I think that was just like it naturally. I just kept meeting people and connecting, and Instagram and TikTok and all of that. So it kind of like worked out. Like in the moment I was like, oh my God, this is not working, but now when I look back at it, I'm like, oh, that makes so much sense.
No, props to you. I feel like that's a huge change to navigate, and then also still stay true to yourself as an entrepreneur. Like, what was that like balancing it all? Because like, first of all, you have like this new like relationship / like you're married now, and then you're navigating networking, your business. Were you still working for a little bit as a therapist still, or
I was, yeah. So when I could, I like the first job I got right away was like at a hospital as a therapist, and that's when I realized I hated it. That's when I was like, oh, like I need to do something. But like that transition and that like restart was really hard. Like I know Canada's right there and like people are like, it's not really different, but like just moving in itself
is a lot.
It's a lot. I think it was very hard, and I don't know, like now that I think about it, I was like, wow, like how did I do that? Or like how did, like, props to me, younger aimon, really like you know what I mean? But like just like trying to get yourself back out there and get back in the industry, like that was definitely hard because I came from a city where looking like this was very normal. Like I never stood out in a crowd, to a city where I was the only one in every single room.
Girl, you went from Toronto, which is diverse as hell, to Ohio.
Yes, so
Ohio is like,
I'm still one of, like, every room I'm in, I'm the only person that looks like me. And so I think that was the harder transition, is realizing, oh, I'm the person. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, now I'm like, I had to like mentally be like, oh, people are gonna ask me questions and people are gonna associate me with certain things, and people are going to all of a sudden see me in the room because I'm the only person that looks different. So that transition was definitely hard for me.
What helped you through it? Because you're here.
Yeah, that's true.
I
guess I've never thought about it that way.
No, but I get it though. I feel like when you look back on like a hard seeming time, you're like,
oh
my God, like I was in like this like hellhole incubator. Like, to be honest, right? Like,
really.
And you're just like, whether it's a transition like that, a toxic relationship, having like bad friends, whatever, like all these things are just like, oh my God, like what was I doing? But then like you're like, you made it here. So like shout out to younger aimon.
I think it's because like I just knew myself really well.
Like
I've always been really confident in what I want to do, and I always was. I'm the kind of person where I'm like, if I want to do it, nothing is gonna stop me. Like if I have to do it 100% alone, like I will do it. Like I don't want to, but I will.
Do you have siblings?
I do. I'm the oldest.
I thought you were initially going to say an only child, but oldest also makes sense.
Okay.
I feel like if you're an only child, I'm an only child.
Okay.
And if you're the oldest sibling, you have the sense of like independence. I feel like where you're like, I don't care.
Like I had to figure it out myself, so I'm gonna figure it out myself.
Exactly.
Like, I moved a whole country, figured it out, so I'm sure I could figure out the business. You know what I mean? So part of me was like, I have this idea, I fully believe in it. I had done it in Canada. I was still doing it like pre-pandemic, and I was like, okay, if I could find the right team, this is amazing. If not, I 100% am confident that I can do it. And me being the only one that looked like me in the room was really like jarring at first. I was kind of like, at one point, like I stopped going to events because I was kind of like, are people gonna talk to me? Because like a lot of people, okay, I know I look intimidating, I have RBF, I've acknowledged it, Like if you,
I didn't feel like that.
If
but
you
I guess
don't know
met,
me, if you don't know me and you see me, I've been told, and I get it. But the thing is, like when I look like this and I walk into the room, a lot of people in the Midwest were like, not sure who I was, but also like people didn't know if I spoke English, which I know is not the best thing, but like it wasn't.
So they're like, it's kind of like teetering on racism.
Yeah, there was like I would say, I like to say that a lot of people were just, it was the lack of knowledge.
Yeah,
a lot of them had just never come across someone like me doing the things I was. So when I would start speaking, I would be like, wait, so what do you do? Where are you from? Like, who
are you?
Yeah, who are you? Yeah, why? Like, because it's very like, you're not from here, right? I think that was very jarring. But once I got over that, I was like, okay, you know what? This is actually a blessing in disguise.
Superpower.
Exactly, because now I'm the only one in the room. And everybody should notice me, and I do stand out, and I use that to my benefit.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I mean, I think that's like the best thing you can do. Turn that like initially perceived like weakness to something that's a strength, because as an entrepreneur, like if you don't stand out, like there is a problem. Because you need people to know about your business and about you, and you're also an influencer. So I think it's a great thing to have. I find that many creatives, influencers, entrepreneurs, they often end up being people that like felt like that like otherness that you're talking about, or just like we were like ferociously independent from a young age, and like, and then like they just do this thing, and it's like they were meant to stand out, and it turns into like the reason why they're so successful. So props to you for doing that.
Thank you.
So are you still in Ohio?
Yeah.
What has that been like? I mean, you've been there for a while now.
Yeah.
Like, how do you feel about it now? And like, I guess like I know you were also married. Like when you did this, like what was that support like when you like were with your husband and like navigating all these things and starting a new business? Like, tell me a bit more about that.
I think I definitely told him like, I'm a little crazy, like just be ready. Like I do a lot, and I think he like he didn't understand, because he's not a creative like me. He's more of like a math guy. You know what I mean? But I was like, okay, I know like I work in a hospital, but I also do fashion on the side, and I do a lot of other things. And it was actually his idea when I first moved, and I couldn't work in the beginning. He's like, why don't you start a business? And I was like, yeah, you're right.
We love a supportive
he's like
man.
very supportive, and I like really appreciate that, because sometimes you just need someone who has like a different point of view but is also supportive. And like, do I get mad a lot? Yes, because I'm like, can you just support me instead of like giving me real like solutions? But like it helps in the long term, you know what I mean? To like have someone that you can just be like, okay, like this is what I'm thinking of doing, like what do you think? And like having that support, even like when I did my first event, like there were things that I just, I didn't know that many people still at that point, and I just like, he was in the back like helping carry things, and I was like, thank you. I really appreciate this. Like that goes a long way. So I think now, me being in the Midwest, I've definitely leaned into it, and I like to say that there's actually a lot of potential. Like I'm constantly surprised by the people I meet and the places or the history that I learn. Even though when I first moved to like the Cleveland area, it had I understand people have a bad rep of it, but like I didn't realize, but like we have one of like the best art museums in the country, like top 5, which I didn't know. It's stunning. It's like
used to me too.
Yeah,
girl.
It's beautiful. We have one of the best fashion schools right outside of Cleveland, which a lot of my interns are from. It's called Kent State. Did not know that. I like was just learning all of this like info, and I was like, oh, this actually works really well for what I want to do. It kind of all aligns. Like, even though they don't have the industry like New York and Toronto, because obviously bigger cities, but like now I've leaned into it where like I feel like my life in the Midwest is a lot like calmer. It's a slow calmer for me, which people are like, you're doing so much. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm really not. But like then I also go back home. I haven't started doing anything in Toronto yet. I do want to, but like I'm more focused on New York because I come here so often, where I'm like, we're already expanding here. This is kind of the lifestyle I lived before. This is what I'm used to. But the Midwest is very peaceful. It's calming. There's great.
The US is really peaceful.
Oh, the Midwest.
Like
I mean, peaceful in the sense of my schedule.
No, I get what you're saying. At
not
first,
that kind of peace. But yeah, so it's different. But I do like it now. But we'll see where I end up.
Yeah. So you said you go back to Toronto a lot?
Yeah, I go back to visit my family and friends because they're all still there.
No, yeah.
It's not too far, but yeah.
Dude, I've always wanted to go to Toronto. You gotta give me some recs.
You've never been?
I've been there once, but I went with my family when I was like, I don't know, like 13.
Oh my God,
saw
girl.
like the tower.
You are going
everything.
to love it. The food is amazing. The culture, the
Is
cultural
Tim
diversity.
Hortons good, or is that?
It is. It is. I don't know if that's unpopular, but I love Timmy's.
What would you recommend I get?
An ice cap and Timbits.
And what?
Timbits.
What's Timbits?
Okay. I think Americans call them donut holes. Like the little round mini donuts.
Like spheres?
Yes.
Munchkins. At Dunkin' they call
they're
it.
Timbits.
They're Timbits. Okay.
Yeah.
You know what?
Yeah,
I'll go with it.
So, I do think that Tim Hortons in Canada is better than the American ones. I'm just gonna say.
I mean, yeah, I feel like whenever I go anywhere, I'm like, the food there is so much better than in America.
Yeah, but oh my God, the food diversity in Canada is wild. It's amazing. You're gonna love the food. You should go.
Ooh, there's this it's called like, it's like the fried thing with fries and gravy.
Oh yes,
It's
poutine.
like poutine.
I love poutine.
I had a friend in college who was from Canada, and she had a bunch of family friends there,
Oh my
and
God.
she would always talk about it, and she like made it for us once,
Oh
and
my God,
that
poutine
was
is so
fire.
good. Poutine is so good, especially if you're like in Montreal. That's like
That's my thing to go. I know Montreal and Quebec are like very French. Is this true?
Yeah. So they speak French. Everything is in French.
Do you speak French?
I kind of. Like I learned it in school. It's our second language. Like
That's so
as
cool.
Canadians, but I'm definitely losing it because I no longer practice it, but I can still like read. So
That's dope. Yeah, I get that. For me, the second language is Spanish, but I never use it.
oh, exactly.
So it's like,
Yeah.
I'm like, if someone were to like, I can read Spanish and like figure it out, but like, if I went to Spain, I'd be like, ¿Dónde está el baño?
Yeah, like I went to Paris and like I couldn't speak it, but I could understand it and I could translate everything. Like I was really proud when we went to the museums. I was like, oh, I can translate this for you.
Yeah, that's amazing. So you said you visit your friends a lot. Like, have your friends been supportive? Like, what has that been like, having friends there, and then also like you're managing your friends here in Ohio, New York? Like, tell us about that. And then also just like, you know, I feel like having a lot of friends is great, but then you have that like core supportive group of your friends. Like, tell me about that. Like, what has that been like?
Yeah, honestly, even with the shift and the move to America, I think a lot of my friendships changed because life happens and you get busy, and I just got married, moved the country. Like I was really out of touch, I think, but then I like worked really hard to like, you know, be like, no, I'm going to make these relationships a priority. I do have like my core friend group. Like we've known each other since like middle school.
Oh,
there was like 8 of us. They were all my bridesmaids. Like we like meet up like once or twice a year. I virtually meet up with them if I can't obviously go, but like I think a lot of them always knew like I'm gonna do something different, like non-traditional, and some of them might still not understand what I do, but they're like super supportive, and I love that. And
that's what's important, right?
Yeah, and I think for a lot of people, like it depends on how they know me, because I know, you know how like I'm super social, so I know a lot of different groups, if that makes sense.
I get it. Yeah.
Yeah, and like some people don't really get it, but they're like supportive, and then other people are just like, okay, that's just Aimon at this point. Like we just know she has business and she does all these cool things, but then there are more specific like entrepreneur friends that I've made recently, definitely in the Midwest and here in New York, that are doing all the things like I am. Yeah, Kaya, you like, you know, you guys get it. Like if I talk to you about the struggles behind entrepreneurship, you'd be like, yeah, absolutely, I get it. In the same room, all of that. Whereas a lot of my friends that are in like 9-to-5s,
it's so different.
It's so
I was
different.
talking about this with another entrepreneur friend.
Yeah.
It's so true. I feel like when you talk to friends who have a 9-to-5, which is, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I've also been in a 9-to-5 before. Like, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's more so just like, I feel like sometimes if the person's mindset is like very like anti-risk to like an extreme, like I have some 9-to-5 friends where they're also entrepreneurial and like they have like that growth mindset, and then it's fine. But then some people, like, they're very like just like, oh, like, no, this is the only way, like, I can't do this, like, by the rules, like that kind of thing.
Very by the book. I feel like in entrepreneurship, everything is risky. Do you know what I mean? You have to be a risk taker.
You make it up as you go. So it's like, it's literally like create your own reality. Like
I have friends who are like, I just want to work a 9 to 5 for the rest of my life and take my 2 weeks vacation, and I'm so happy. And I'm like, I love that for you.
Yeah.
And then I have friends, like you said, that are like teetering, they're a mix, and then, you know, so it depends. Like there's certain things, like I'm not going to tell them about my entrepreneurship struggles, because to them it's probably going to sound like,
what is she doing?
What are you complaining about? Like,
yeah, no,
traveling
exactly.
too much. You know what I mean? Whereas someone like Kaya, if I talk to her about like me traveling last minute,
tired,
she'll get it. Whereas someone else will be like, wait, like a lot of people will ask me like, wait, so why do you travel so much? And I'm like, I like to, and I make content and I work with tourism boards. Like,
yeah,
like I think some people still don't realize that I'm an actual content creator that makes money off my platform. Like, you know, for some people, especially in the Midwest, like so I don't know if this makes sense, but like in Ohio, influencers and content creators, it's a little different. It's a lot more like focused on family, like that kind of lifestyle, or food. There's not a lot of fashion or like
person focused.
Yeah, so I stand out a little bit more, because a lot of the brands are like, okay, like we've never signed a contract with an influencer, and I'm like, okay, well, I have one, you can look it over. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's just a different type of industry, whereas obviously in New York everybody knows. If I say, like, I think the first thing that, like, this is where I realized there was a difference. So when I was doing my very first fashion show that I produced in Cleveland, it's called The Runway. I told people, like, okay, like, we're gonna have designers, and someone was like, oh, like graphic designers? And I was like, wait, what?
Graphic design?
I was like, no, like clothing. Like, I guess I was shocked, because I didn't realize that when people say, a lot of people when they say designer, and I think it's changed now, but like they meant graphic, and I was thinking fashion, obviously. You know, like that difference. Or like a lot of like so this is our 5th year anniversary for Fashion Talks, and year 1 when I did the fashion show, I really wanted to bring like New York, Toronto level shows to Cleveland. And when I told people, oh, I'm doing a fashion show, a lot of people, their first reaction was, where are you going to get the clothes? And I was like, no, production designers are coming in, they're producing a line, you can meet them, like it's a whole thing, and then they would get it. But like a lot of people still tell me, like, oh my god, I've never been to a fashion show, this is the first time I went, it was amazing. So it was just a different market. Yeah,
that's really different. And it's really interesting, like how that when you're navigating that and trying to put that together, it must be a little bit irritating, for lack of a better word. Like when someone's like, essentially because it's so new to them, kind of judging it, or like they don't know, so they're like, oh, like how are you gonna do that, like how is that possible? And while you're in the process of also telling yourself, this is possible, I can do this, like someone's asking you, like I've had that before, and I'm just like, it's fine.
I think I like had to switch from like, because I like had done it before, so for me it was like common sense, right? But then I was like, okay, wait, the Midwest is going to require a lot more like education and a lot more like of that like understanding on the base level of like, hey, like this is what the show is, this is what we're doing, this is who's involved. Whereas if I came to New York and I started explaining to that, people would be like, are you crazy? I know what a fashion show is. You know what I mean? Yeah. Not to say that they didn't know, but like there's just more like foundational like learning that I had to like teach or like write out for people. For them to understand, which now people totally, like 5 years in, they like love the runway, they know what it is, they get it. But I still like come across people and brands that I'm like, okay, this is what I'm doing, this is what it is, here are examples, like this is what you're gonna like, this is the impact. Because also like a lot of larger brands that I wanted to like, you know, collaborate with or work with, or sponsors and all of that, they were just like, how do we fit in? And I'm like, there's so much, like the runway, there's so much economic impact, there's so much growth, there's so much entrepreneurship, there's so much like, there's so many people that have met, gotten a job, connected with someone else, gotten hired. I'm like, there's more than just fashion. So I think it's that mindset shift. No, I think like that level of impact is crazy, because it really does open up so many doors, and the fact that you're doing that is honestly props to you. And it's really cool how you mentioned how it's like about education versus just like doing, I don't know, like just, you know, like growth in a different way. Exactly. Like if they don't know, then they're not going to. I would say like that's true. Like
not trying to get into anything crazy, but I feel like that level of education is true for like a lot of other places in America that are similar to Ohio, where it's like they might just not know about certain things, you know, and then when they know, they're like, oh, okay, like, you know, and like I think that's really interesting. I feel like that goes for so many things. Like sometimes people just don't know, you know.
Yeah, and even when I first moved there and I was like networking with people, I met like some of the best photographers I've ever worked with, and I was like, why are you not doing fashion editorials?
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, we just never had that opportunity. We didn't know, because bridal is so big there. The bridal industry is really big in Ohio, and so even like the modeling agencies we do have, they all do bridal. And then I met these photographers and videographers, and I'm like, your work is crazy, come with me to Toronto. Like for real, like I've done some editorials in Cleveland that I'm like, this is so good. So I think it's just like you know, when you're in a bubble, when that's what's around you, that's all you see until someone comes and is like, hey, let's try something different.
No, it's really dope that you introduce people to that. And even like, again, like going back to like the friends, family relationships, all of that, like what is your relationship like with your family?
Well, as we talked about this, I'm the oldest.
Yeah.
I'm the oldest of an immigrant family. I'm a Virgo, so you can imagine.
I feel like that period, that's it.
I was always very independent. I was always very like hyper focused. A lot of my friends know I'm very black and white in the sense, like, even with my decision making, I don't have any gray area. Like, I know what I like and I know what I don't like.
That's
like,
amazing.
Yeah, I have definitely built that. So like with my family, they always knew like she's doing all the things and she's all
not gonna
over.
listen to us.
I was a really good kid though.
Yeah.
Like I always did listen to them, but like they also knew, like my mom and my dad always like trusted me to be like, yeah, she's working behind the scenes at fashion shows, and this is just, but she's studying psychology. Like they were just like, yeah, okay, do it. Yeah. I feel like I did not have a very typical brown family upbringing, because I know a lot of friends and other girls in my community have always been like, oh, my parents were really strict, like I wasn't allowed to go out late, you know, things like that. But like I've been very like lucky, and I'm very grateful that like my parents kind of always let me do what I wanted to do. And now when I think about it, I'm like, why didn't they ask me more questions? You know, like when I was in university, I would go and volunteer or like work fashion shows after, and like I would come back at like 1 a.m. and I just call my dad like, can you come pick me up from the bus stop? He would just be there. And I was like I appreciated that, but then also that helped me a lot with growing my career in the earlier days. But yeah, like I love my siblings, I love my family, and I think it's fun because they always come to my show and, you know, get to experience that. And my mom is such a like girl's girl, kind of like my shopping addiction and all of my fashion stuff is definitely from her. Like she owns her own boutique now.
Ooh, so your mom is an entrepreneur as well.
Yeah, I'm so proud of her.
That is amazing.
She does like more she carries South Asian designers and does like custom bridal stuff. But like, I am like never dressed down, and then once someone asked me, I know, I was like, someone asked me once, they're like, do you own sweatpants? And I was like, I don't know. And they're like, why? And I'm like, this is all my mom's fault. Like she never let us dress down. She was super social when we were growing up. Like when I tell you, when I was in university, if my parents went grocery shopping, we were all in the car. If she did not care if you had an exam, she's like, you're going to be in the car. Like we're all going together. We're going to an event. We're going to a party. There's always someone at our house on the weekends. My friends would come over and just take naps at my place. Like we were very like
goals.
Yeah, very social. Like she literally will like come in between when you're studying and be like, do you want to just go to the mall? Like I think you're working too hard. And I'm like, aren't you supposed to be telling me to study harder? So she was always very like chill, dressed to the T, loved all the fun things, and I think I definitely got that from her. But she also worked very hard. So yeah, I mean, they know that Aimon is gonna call us at any time and be like, yeah, I'm on a plane tomorrow, and then they'll be like, okay, where are you going this time? So
that's amazing. I definitely resonate with like the not having the traditional Indian parents, like South Asian parents growing up, because like I would say my parents are also very much like they would never like restrict what I can't do, and I'm definitely really grateful for that.
I feel like that shows in your confidence too.
How?
Because I find like you can tell when someone is very confident in their decisions, and usually it's because like they were able to do the things and fail forward in a way, whereas people who are very restricted, not everyone, but like I do feel like they're a lot more conscious and like overthinking and can I do this, I'm not sure, is this possible, whereas like I feel like people like us, we're just kind of like, yeah, I'm gonna do it, and I'll figure it out.
No, that's so true. I feel like they gave me the freedom to like make mistakes, like go out, like not just in like a career sense, but in general, right? Like there was never like a curfew or anything. It was just like be safe. Like,
like I had rules, but like they made sense, you know?
Yeah, like it was never anything. I feel like they were like really reasonable, you know? I think in the beginning, like when I was like starting with teacher, like they were like kind of strict, but then I think that they were just like, okay, like whatever, she's gonna like do what she wants.
We trust her,
exactly, that kind of thing. Like I never did anything that was like so crazy, that was like, you know what I mean? So,
and I was like a good kid, I was a good student, like I did great in school too. I enjoyed it, and I was like, why not? And
no, exactly. I think it does make a big difference. I saw this. I forget who posted it, but it was on like a reel or TikTok. It was like some celebrity, and it was like, oh, like I think that I can do whatever I want because I've always been told that like I'm special and I can do whatever I want. I think it was Kanye. I didn't want to mention him.
I know. I saw a different. It was not him. The one I saw, like the girl was talking about how like her mom always just like kind of believed in her, so she always believed in herself too. And I was like, oh, I guess that really, she talked about like, I think she was talking about gentle parenting, but I'm like, you know, that makes so much sense because like I don't think I've ever been told, oh, you're gonna fail at something in life. And I actually had this conversation with my husband because especially as South Asian and when our parents are immigrants, like, you know, they live a hard life and they want us to live a better life, which is why they want us to stick to like a 9-to-5 and security and all of that. But like I told him, I'm like, listen, if tomorrow I wanted to become a doctor at like right now, I 100% believe I could do it.
You can.
And he's like,
why not?
He's like, you can't, because like, you know, he's thinking like logically, and I'm like, no, I can do it.
I feel like you can. Like, what would be the thing stopping you?
But like, you know, people are gonna be like, well, you're older and like studying.
No, I get what you're saying.
You know what I mean? But like, we would be like, yeah, we can do it. And I think a lot of people like don't have that confidence of attitude. Like, because when I did my first show, even I was just like, I'm gonna do this show. I'm gonna have 300 people seated. I'm gonna have sponsors. I'm gonna have gift bags. I'm gonna have designers. And a lot of people are like, how? And I was like, it's not the how, it's just the what and when. Like, I will figure it out. It's not about how I'm gonna figure it out, because I'm so confident I will figure it out.
I think it's also about like being comfortable with failing. Like, I think that's something I'm really comfortable with now, because with entrepreneurship, like I failed so many different times, you know, and I feel like we've all experienced that. But like the more comfortable you become with that, you're like, this is like the worst it's gonna get.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
Then, like, you know what I mean?
You just need to, like, you're like, okay, well, I've been failing, so I know I'm gonna stop failing very soon, so I just gotta keep going. Which I think a lot of people are so scared to start because of that.
With a lot of stuff, it's not even just entrepreneurship, but like in general.
They don't want to step outside like the
comfort
box.
Zone.
Yeah, especially when I do like consulting stuff, I always tell like creatives or entrepreneurs, I'm like, okay, you're sitting here making a whole plan about, okay, I'm gonna start my business, and then this could go wrong and this could go wrong. And I'm like, when you start your business, things that you never imagined are gonna go wrong. So like, how would you know?
Fuck up, like,
how would you know? Like, you have to start the thing to then figure out what's gonna go wrong. You just have to have the confidence that like, I'm gonna always figure it out.
Yeah, you know, exactly. It's like how like when people talk about relationships and they're like, oh, like you shouldn't try to control your partner, just trust that you're gonna be able to walk away if something goes wrong. Like, it's the same concept here, where
you
it's
have
like,
to have confidence in yourself for every aspect, or else you're just gonna be scared for your relationships, for your business, for your 9-to-5, you know what I mean?
Even 9-to-5, like being scared to ask your boss for a promotion, or being scared to leave. Right?
Yeah, even like just change paths. There's a lot of people in 9-to-5s that want to do other things, and they're just too scared. And I'm like, well, how do you live with the regret? Like, just try to do the thing.
That's what I don't get. How do you, like, my biggest thing, I posted a reel about this other day. It was like, I'm so scared of ever settling for anything in my life, whether it's a man, it's my career, it's anything I'm doing in my life. Like, I don't care. Like, I'm never gonna settle. And I think that's genuinely what drives me. And I can see that, like, that is probably what drives you to some capacity as well. Otherwise you wouldn't be here, you know?
I also think, like, it seems like if you have a more positive mindset overall, and I know it sounds like so cringe to say this, but like, if you are thinking from a positive point of view, things generally will always work out for you. Because I have met a lot of entrepreneurs that just, their mindset is like, oh my god, I know something's gonna go wrong in my business, and I know when I launch this that no one's gonna like it, and like someone's gonna complain. And I'm like, girl, you're putting that out in the world. It's gonna happen. Like in my mindset, I'm like, okay, everything's gonna work out, and even if I have to pivot, it's actually gonna work out for the better. And usually that's what ends up happening.
Yeah, pivot is so good. Like for me, when I started out my business, it was actually my third or second business. It's fashion brand. We talked about this, right? And then I pivoted to this media company where it just felt like it was flowing a lot better. And I'm like, I don't see that as like someone going to be like, oh well, so you're not going to keep scaling that. And it's like, not like that's not what it's about.
It wasn't serving you anymore.
Yeah, it wasn't serving me in the same way. So I'm focusing more on this. Doesn't mean that like maybe I won't come out with another collection at some point, but like it doesn't have to be your main focus. Like I don't know, I feel like you can just do whatever you want.
My first business was also a jewelry brand, and then I changed it up, and I started in the pandemic. I had a bookkeeping and accounting company, and I still have that. It's not my main focus, but like it's there. And then I started Fashion Talks, and that really was where I was like, oh, this is what I was meant to be doing.
And it's the feeling you have, right? Even if it's a 9 to 5, like a feeling that you have, like this is the right job for me. And I think that people need to tune into that feeling.
Like my gut feeling is so strong, and I trust it 100%. Like if anything happens or if I meet anyone and my gut feeling is off, that's it.
Yeah.
Because I know I have never been wrong with it.
How did you cultivate that? Because that's
a
process. I know it took me a while.
It was a process, and I think as a student, because I was like really getting out there and networking back when I was a student, I was really able to like process. Like I said, I really know what I like now. I really know what I don't like, and I'm more in tune with my body. And I feel like a lot of people forget about that. Especially as women, we have. I literally just talked about this on the panel with Kaya the other day, but we run on like a monthly cycle, right? Like we don't feel the same every day or every week. And we also like kind of our body knows what we want. So for me, like I really like figured out like where do I feel resistance? Like where do I feel stress? Where do I feel, because I feel like different cultures feel stress in different ways. Like as a psychology major, I like loved learning about all of this.
I love it.
Yeah, so like Western cultures feel stress more mentally, in the sense that like they might get more anxiety. Not to say that anyone else doesn't, but like I've noticed, and there are studies that in South Asian or Eastern cultures, our stress is more physical, like backaches, stomach aches, things like that, which is so real. Because as soon as our parents get stressed, what's happening? Their head hurts, their back hurts. So it's different. Stress shows itself in different ways, and once you realize that, I think it really helps. So for me, like I will like feel this thing in like my gut, and I'll just be like, oh, like the energy also like of this person is just, there's something wrong here.
It's not vibing.
And usually it always turns out to be right. But I think you really have to like work on really being like, sometimes you just have to be quiet, watch people,
and listen to yourself.
Like
I feel like I definitely used to gaslight myself out of those things, but then like now I'm like, I think that you don't have to like everyone. You don't have to jive with everyone.
Exactly.
And the pickier you are, it's like the better.
To be honest,
the better you'll have people that actually align with you.
And especially as an entrepreneur, if you plan to grow fast, there's not going to be a lot of people around you. I'm going to be so honest. I feel like it definitely gets lonely as you grow faster, because everybody loves to support you until you do better than them, unfortunately. And there are going to be the people who love you either way, which you need to have your core group, but it is hard because you're going to see the potential in people and you're going to want to grow with them. But if they're not ready for it, you can only take care of yourself. And you have to like really lock in on that and be like, different people have different seasons. Because I think that's hard in entrepreneurship, because I'm like, oh my God, like
that one friend
or that one entrepreneur, I see the potential, we're going to grow together, and then maybe they're not, and that's okay. And I think just like going through life and like dealing with people will really help you like cultivate that like inner like intuition. Because now like even when I do like my intern, like when I open up my internship applications, like I really go more based off of like the energy they're presenting and like how their confidence is and what they're willing to do, rather than someone who has a perfect resume and is a straight A student. Because I've had girls that I've interviewed that were like perfect on paper, but then they weren't really willing to put in the work. And then I've had girls that were like, listen, I know I've never done an internship like this, but I promise you I will work so hard and do everything. And I was like, you know what? that's gonna make a difference, because you'll go further with that attitude.
And your energy, I feel like, is important. Like, would you want to work with someone who's more negative or not? It makes a big difference in the workflow too.
I don't do mean girls at all. I can't stand, especially in the industry when it's so small, everybody talks.
Oh my god, I had such a funny story about Mean Girls, literally from the hackathon I told you about. So when I first was, we get there, right, and we present your ideas, and so one of the first girls I talked to, like, she's like in the, like, the VC space, etc. I tell her about, like, the idea. I'm not gonna talk about it just yet because I have to make a LinkedIn post about it, etc.
It's really cool though.
It is really cool. It's like, think like skincare, but like you guys will know. Anyways, so I told her about it, and she's like, oh, like, I'm hesitant about it. I've seen this fail so many times. Like, this is not gonna work out. And like her, like, as I was speaking to her, Aimon, like, literally, like, her, like, eyebrows are, like, furrowing. Like, this girl, like, does not like me. Like, I can tell that she's like, ew. Like, I had, like, red lipstick on that day, so you know what I mean.
Girl,
like,
you look cute. She was jealous.
No, yeah, I don't know, but like, basically, I guess, like, and sometimes in, like, a tech space, like, when you are someone that has, like, red lipstick on and a cute fit, it's like,
they don't take you seriously.
Yeah, that can happen. Doesn't normally happen to me, thankfully, because I'm like, screw that. But like, this person did, and like, then of course after we presented, and like after 3 days, it's like her team didn't really get anywhere. And that's not to say that, like, it just made me realize, like, Mean Girls, like, being a mean girl doesn't work. I don't know.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, because when I first had the idea to start my business, I talked to someone that I really looked up to as a mentor, and she straight up was like, you can't do it. Word for word. She was like, it's not gonna work. Because it didn't work for me. It's not gonna work for you.
That's what it is. Because it didn't work for me.
Yeah.
That's it.
It's because if they can't see themselves being successful in it, who they think, like, who are you to be successful in that idea?
I don't get that mindset.
Yeah,
like, I
definitely,
know.
it's not something I understand either, but like the amount of people that like didn't believe in me, and then I was like, but why? Like, what if I am successful? Like, I am going to be successful. I know I am. And then I did it, and you know what? I now can choose not to work with those people, and you know what, sucks to be them, not sucks to be me.
Exactly.
That's how I always see it. It's not a me problem, it's a you problem. If you're a mean girl, why would I work with you?
Yeah,
like, why would I want that energy in my life? But like, you're right, like, she probably looked at you and was like, oh, well, if I had that idea, I probably couldn't do it, so she probably can't do it. And then you did it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and we got second place. So
yeah,
it's like,
good job.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just crazy. Like, I when I look back, any mean girl I've ever dealt with, like,
they don't go far.
They don't go far, which just sounds like, I don't know. It's crazy because especially sometimes, like, in so many cultures, but I've obviously we notice our culture where, like, that competitiveness, that mean girlness, like, we've experienced it.
Or even just like the fact, like, why are you doing more? Like, just get married and settle
oh my
down.
God, literally, yeah, that part is too
and even
real.
now that I'm married, the confusion of some but the confusion of some people of just like, why do you have your own business? You're married. Like, what do you do?
That's so weird. It's like,
so weird. I'm like, what
I'm
do you
not handicapped once I'm married.
I'm like, my husband enjoys my work too. Like, he's at my events. He's like, you know, he loves coming and he loves the opportunities I get. And like, usually he's my like photographer when I travel. Like, hello, like, this is great. And I think, like, it's just, I really think it's a cultural shift that's kind of happening, because like a lot of the older generation within South Asian communities, and some people our age too,
of course,
their mindset is just so different. But I think like there's people like me and you that are coming in and like we're like, no, this has to change. But it is so toxic, especially with like just, you know, the whole like get married, have a kid, and just what else could you possibly do in your life?
Why would you want, like, that has to be the dream if you're a girl. Other than that, and the career is just a means to like fuel the family. But
imagine, I've been married for a few years and I don't have a kid yet, so
yeah.
A lot of people don't understand when I say that, how like big of a deal that is for South Asian people.
Yeah, no, it is, because I feel like they're probably just like, so when is it, like, when are you gonna do it?
Like,
it's like
happening?
it's such a personal matter. Like, shut up, like, truthfully. Yeah,
like, if you don't know me, don't ask.
Exactly. Yeah, or don't repetitively ask after. Like,
I think it's mostly the older aunties that are just very like, that was the life that they had, they expected, and so they just see it as, well, that's all you can do in life. Like, what else would you want? You know?
Yeah, that's like happiness to them.
Yeah. So, like, a lot of times I'm just like, I do accounting stuff. Like, sometimes I just, I'm like, I'm not lying. I have an accounting business. And then they look at me and go, oh, okay, so your husband's an accountant? I'm like, yeah, maybe he is. Like, I'm just not going to even expand. But I'm tired at this point. I don't explain anymore. Or some of them don't get it. So they think, half the community thinks I'm like a designer. And I'm like, I'm not. And then the other half are like, we don't get what she does. And I'm like, that's fine. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. That's so funny. Yeah. Okay, well, we are coming to the end of the episode, and I love to end off each episode by asking my lovely guest, what is one thing that you wish that you could tell your younger self?
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. So I know that younger Aimon was confident, but I really wish that she was a lot more confident, especially when she moved here.
Yeah.
And I kind of wish that I did more. Like, for that period of time where I stopped networking and I wasn't as confident, I kind of was just not, I wasn't used to the change. I wish I was. I wish I knew that, like, I should just show up as myself and continue to be authentic, because I was going to find the right people. And I feel like in the moment, it might not feel like it to you, no matter if you're in a 9 to 5 or if it's a relationship or if it's an entrepreneurship thing, but it will all work out in the end. And if it always makes sense. So, like, just continue to do the thing.
Period. No, that's an amazing thing. Yeah, well, thank you for coming on to Brown Girl Unscripted. I really enjoyed our conversation, and our audience did too. And for y'all, make sure you smash the subscribe button, leave a review letting us know what you thought, anything that Aimon said or that I said that really stood out to you, because that's how we grow around here. And yeah, that's all I got for you. See you guys in the next episode. Bye.
Bye. Oh my god, thank you for having me.